might want to use a level. Hey guys, we're up for another Reacts video. Apparently these are doing well, and I'm happy the team's here to film this today. What we got, I don't know, maybe 8 or 12 of these videos, and they're kind of all over the map in the sense of what they're talking about, but it's interesting to see what's on the web. I think sometimes people just watch it to realize that, hey, this is not what I should be doing. And some of these videos are sort of kind of like that. So let's look at this. So the first one is restore your fence, and it's got it for a $200 weekend project. And what we got is the home renovation channel, and there's been a lot of React videos to this particular one, I must say. Yes, he's probably in the $200 budget, I'm going to say. He has protected the grass with some kind of plastic or fabric, but the reality is there are much better ways to clean your fence than what's on here, and the methods are a little unorthodox. So I would always look to a video that was created by the manufacturer of the products you're using. They're going to give you a much better idea of how to use the product and what the reactions will be. So in this particular case, he's using a product that may have bleach, it may have other carcinogens that might in fact change the color of that vinyl fences right next to it. You just don't know for sure until you get into the details. And the wood really should be wet before you start a project like this so that the product that you're using can get absorbed into the wood. It has to stay on the wood for a duration of time, usually 20 minutes or so, and then it should be rinsed off again. So the process that's being used here is going to leave a lot of residual product on that fence, at least in this method. The other thing is, why does that fence post, the wooden fence post, not have a cap? Put a cap on those things. The end grain is just going to suck up so much water and it's going to rot the top of the post. So why do you even bother washing a fence that's going to fall down without a cap? I mean, anyway, we won't go through the whole thing, but certainly I would always look at videos or information from the manufacturer of the product you're using to clean your fence before you do this, as opposed to just looking at a DIY channel and seeing what somebody else is doing. DIY? Too many letters. Anyway, next video. How to fix a wood post fence restoration. Now, again, the word restoration here is a misnomer. There's no restoring here. But in this particular video, you can see the fence is right wobbly. That post has failed. No question about it. It just happens to be staying up because the panels next to it are still connected to it, but it wouldn't be long before it falls over. And I would say the fix that this gentleman is showing here would be something that you would do for a weekend or a week, not for a year or two. And certainly, having that piece of that 2x4 sitting there blocking your entranceway, maybe not even allowing you to take out your recycling, or worse yet, if you had a problem in a fire or whatever, you wouldn't be able to get out, or it's a definite trip hazard. I would say that's a weekend fix after a windstorm. I got to keep this fence up until you can get that post pulled and fixed. Not a restoration, not 2-year project, or at least I wouldn't recommend it. Okay, so we got another video here, setting a post in the ground. Now, it's interesting. It says for beginners, and certainly if you've never set a post before, then yes, you are a beginner. I think he goes through it relatively well. So, you want to level the post, and he's got a post leveler in his initial introduction. And he's talking about the diameter of the hole relative to the size of the post. I think all that information is valid and worthwhile. The cantilevered height relationship to the depth. Typically, if you're south of Tennessee, most people are going 24 inches deep. If you're north, you start to get deeper, 30, 36, 48 inches deep. But his reference to how far the post is sticking. So if you had a post sticking out of the ground, I think he's saying that 4 feet, then he'd be in the ground by 2 feet. I would say that is a good way to reference it, but I would say for most people south of Tennessee, they're only going 2 feet deep anyway, even if the post is sticking out of the ground by 6 feet. The diameter, yeah, absolutely. 8 to 12 inches is a traditional diameter for doing that. Those augers tend to be a little dangerous. You just got to really hang on to it, and otherwise you're going to spin around like a top. But as you can see, the earth that he's at there is magic earth. It's really good. Having no rock, no anything, it's just beautiful. So he's able to get in pretty good there. Now, the gravel. I mean, there's really no reason to put gravel at the bottom of a hole. Now, he mentions two reasons. One is to level the post. You don't need gravel to level the post. You're going to level the post based on the reality of where you are in relationship to the rest of the posts on your property. You don't need gravel for that. Then it's regarding moisture. You put gravel on top of weeping tile, for instance, so water can run through it and get into the weeping tile, or French drain, or however you want to call it. Having gravel at the bottom of the post is going to draw moisture to live in that area. Now, is water at the bottom of the post going to kill the post? No. Water at the bottom is doing nothing, because ultimately in this soil, it looks pretty sandy. It's going to drain anyway. If it was clay, it would be just, the water would be sitting on top of that gravel. It's just really a waste of money. You can do it if you feel good about it and it makes you happy, but it's certainly not going to hurt, but it's just going to cost you money that you're not going to see any result from. It isn't going to give you a longer lasting post. If your idea is the post is going to last longer, it's not going to last longer. And here he's talking about using pressure-treated posts as opposed to non-pressure treated, and he's right. A pressure-treated post will last you longer, no question about it. But the pressure treatments that we have today are not the same as they used to be. Using a ground-rated pressure-treated post is not going to get you years and years of life. That post really needs to be in one form or another. Some kind of rot barrier should be placed on that post before you put it in the ground. Where does the post rot? From the ground down to about 6 to 8 inches. That's where it's going to rot, because it's warm, it's got moisture, and it's got oxygen. That's where everything lives. And, the post is just dinner. Bottom of that post, when you pull that post out of the ground in 5 years or 7 years when it's rotten without putting any barriers on it, it's the bottom of the post is going to be fine. You could put a note on there, a magic message, staple it on, and it'll still be there. Hopefully it'll be ink. The ink might be gone, but the note will be there. The gravel, the depth, that's all good. Now, placing in concrete, absolutely, you can just drop the concrete into the hole and then tamp it with some kind of rock bar or something like that to be able to make sure that the concrete is settled in there. There are vibrators you can get from DeWalt and Milwaukee that can go into the ground as well and vibrate that concrete down. If you get enough moisture, in fact, you don't even need to put in a bucket of water. There are people who are going to mix it, but it's not really necessary. This gentleman speaks about keeping the concrete below the ground 3 inches. I would say that would be the minimum. I would go 3 to 8 inches. You want to have some ground on top of the concrete. You never want to bring the concrete right up to the top. All right, what do we got next? Jumbo Tiger. Oh, I see. That's probably the actual product that he's using. So again, here's a fence that's failed. Yeah, it's basically failed. And what these stakes will do is allow you, in principle, to be able to offset the stake by the diameter of the concrete below there. Now, this is always an interesting situation, because how big is that concrete ball? Now, in this particular example, it just happens to work. He's only installed it on one side. I assume he's going to install it on both sides. But it is a fix, but I think it's kind of a tripping hazard, and it's not really the nicest way to do things. But if you need to do a temporary fix and you're really, really on a budget where you just can't get to replace that post or that fence, then I think it'll do the trick. The key is really the offset to the ball of concrete that's underneath there. In that case, it only looks to be about maybe 5 inches. And obviously, in this particular case, that was enough. Okay, we were speaking about post caps earlier when that gentleman was washing the fence. This guy gets it. He realizes that the end grain is like a straw, and it's going to be saturated in water if he doesn't do something about it. So you need some kind of a post cap, or you need to cut an angle on the top of that post to be able to get that resolved. So what he's got here, instead of using a post cap, he's actually just going to glue on, and he doesn't really say what it is, but it looks like maybe some aluminum flashing or something like that. Will that be a post cap? Yeah, it's not pretty. It'll do the job, and it'll keep the moisture off the end grain. So, I mean, obviously, we're going to love our post cap way better. It's tapered, it's beautiful. But if you're on a budget and you want to cut some aluminum flashing and use that, it's still better than zero. I think this one is just kind of a funny video. I'm not sure that his donkey really did break those panels at the bottom there. It might have been more like a pit bull running towards the fence. Yeah, I mean, here's a situation where this is a real simple fix. Just get fence pickets and replace them. You know, it might be a nice idea to clean up the rest of the panels now that you've got these two beautiful fence pickets in there. You're going to look a little off. He's made that repair look easy, and yeah, it's pretty easy. This next video here is fence repair after storm damage. I'm not really sure where it's from. We're guessing it's somewhere down under, but it's kind of a funny little video because we never see square holes anywhere, and the guys dug a square hole, and that, I think, really cool. A little harder to do than creating a round hole. And again, same deal, putting it in the ground and effectively putting in a post without having a rot barrier is really not the best idea. Then we get into another one, how to make custom caps. So there's a couple of wooden cap scenarios here, and one of them is kind of funny because there's replacing a wooden cap with a wooden cap because it fails so quickly. And the idea behind wooden caps are that they're wood and they're going to fail on the top of a post. Even though it's not the end grain exactly, they're not going to last more than, I would say, 3 to 5 years at tops. Nice setup in creating the caps. He's got a bit of waste on that particular example. Also, the way he's handling this on the table saw, you've really got to be careful of that kickback on this particular application. So better be very experienced in this kind of scenario. And you can see how he's standing over to the side. If that does kick back, it's like a bullet. And this other one, how to make and install fence caps, same deal. Wooden caps, never a great idea. You want to go with metal caps. If you've got wooden caps and you're trying to replace them so they look the same, I get it, but you want to go with a metal cap. It'll last you forever. And of course, the fence armor caps are beautiful. You can put finials on them, you can decorate them, and they'll look fantastic for years. This one here on post in concrete, Sean King's been doing this for years. You don't need to put water. You can dry pack these in, and he's vibrated the post back and forth, but you can, as we spoke about earlier, use a rock bar and just tamp in that concrete or vibrate it in, and you're all good to go. And then our last video is Happy Neighbors. So this is a board-on-board privacy fence, and he goes through it real quick, but yeah, easy to do, and it would be even easier if you use that Mr. Fence Shadowlizer, I believe it's called. And again, it's the idea of spacing those boards. It's a great way to be able to do that based on the board width. Okay, guys, well, thank you for joining me today on this Reacts video. It was good to have you listen, and I hope we see you again soon.